Hi again and welcome to the Blue White Tailgate Show as we get you ready for Purdue, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Steve Jones, Todd Sadowski, great to have you with us. Phil Grosz not with us this week. Something about Zurich, Switzerland, banks, I don't know. Todd and I try to stay out of such discussions. One thing we can't stay out of, though, is the discussion when it comes to Minnesota. You know, you want to talk about the literal tale of two halves, but again, struggling on the road.
Yeah, definitely some positives, some negatives. How about the rushing game? It was there. Really nice job by Zach Zwinak. Adam Brenneman showed up a little bit, had a nice 22-yard hookup with Christian Hackenberg. But those turnovers, the very first offensive play of the game, the very last offensive play of the game, a couple of fumbles that really hurt Penn State. The offense is moving the ball. They are just not finishing these drives, Steve.
Yeah, they just aren't at this particular stage. And, I mean, when you look at this team, the struggles away from home, let's just take a look at how it plays out. That's what they've done. Points per game, I mean, the points for and against.
Yeah,
now, part of that's
ugly.
Yeah, it is. It's not exactly the pretty picture that they want. So let's get to, again, sounding off with Bill O'Brien from the Family Clothesline. This is Bill after the game in Minneapolis.
I think our guys played with great effort, Dave. I don't have any problem with the way they played. I told them in the locker room right now, I told them, number one, we're going to coach them better. I said, we're going to make sure that we put you guys in better positions to make plays. I said, number two, we're going to make sure that we do everything we can as a coaching staff to help these seniors go out as winners, because this senior class means a lot to me. And number three, I'm not going to tell you what I said number three, but I said three things to them, and I'm just, again, I feel like there's a lot of football left. These kids will play hard. I don't ever doubt the effort that these kids will play with.
He has done a great job, though, he and his staff and the players, of avoiding back-to-back losses. The only time that's happened in his tenure were the opening two games, Ohio University and Virginia.
Yeah, and I want to know what number 3 was. He's got me all intrigued when he told the team. It's like a tease when he says that stuff. I'm not going to tell you what number 3 is, but yes, absolutely. Only one time have they lost back-to-back games, his first 2 games, as Steve mentioned. And it helps to have Purdue on the schedule and then Illinois in between these losses on the road. So this is a good bounce-back effort they should have against the Boilermakers team that has a lot of trouble right now.
And let's look at what they've done in bounce-back mode, because they've had that ability under him. You see that won their last 6 bounce-back games, and not only that, when they've done it, as you can see, Todd, impressively.
And the point differential is almost the exact of what their road games have been, 44-16, 43-16. So, yeah, and, this is the resiliency that Coach O'Brien always talks about with these kids. They are able to put losses behind them and move on and focus to the next opponent. That's always a good sign. Yes, you don't want to lose the games that they're losing, but at least they're putting it behind them and able to focus on the next opponent.
Now, the next part of this, of course, is the fact that it's going to be Purdue. Now, last year was the Danny Hope Purdue team. Penn State went in there, as you can see in our series between the two. Penn State won last year. Took care of business 34-9. Really won the game with relative ease on a day where Brandon Felder had his one career 100-yard receiving game. And they've dominated the series, and for Penn State, it appears on paper perfect timing.
Yeah, absolutely. With the schedule, this is the kind of game that can cure some ills. We're now going into the 10th game of the season, so what you're going to look for against the Boilermakers is what we haven't seen so far with the offense. You want to finish those drives, even getting some field goals. We didn't even have field goal opportunities on the road to finish those particular drives off defensively, to continue what they started in the second half and continue to shut down the opponent.
Now let's see the next part here. Penn State getting ready for Purdue. So one of the primary questions, especially with a fine, young, talented quarterback in Danny Etling, the possibility of overlooking this team, Bill O'Brien.
And so our guys are very focused on this game. I don't think with our guys, it's never a matter of focusing on who the opponent is. It has nothing to do with records or anything else. It's about playing the best football we can play and trying to get better from the mistakes that we made last week.
People talk repeatedly about what do they have to play for. Well, look, you have your own record to play for at the end of the year. Maybe not a bowl game, but your own record. Upon further review, a great relationship between Joe Paterno and Joe Tiller. We have a great relationship with Fran Fisher, presented by the Penn State Bookstore, upon further review.
Well, here come the Boilermakers staggering into Beaver Stadium to meet the Nittany Lions, fresh off well, the less said about last Saturday's game, the better. When I think of Purdue, I think of a truckloads of chicken and Joe Tiller. No, it's not a chicken story. It's about the winningest football coach in Purdue history. Joe Tiller and Joe Paterno were a mutual admiration society. Paterno credited the import from Wyoming for bringing a different offensive football face to the Big Ten. Tiller sincerely respected Paterno not only for his success, but also that he did it the right way. They became good friends, as did their wives. I had the opportunity to chat with Joe Tiller some years ago. He had retired, and the Tillers were football weekend house guests of the Paternos. Sue had brought them to Thursday's football practice at Haluba. While the ladies did their visiting, Coach Tiller and I talked about Joe Paterno. He was a very personable guy, glib, articulate. It was so refreshing to hear an outsider, an adversary if you will, talk in such glowing terms about Paterno the football coach and Joe Paterno the man. Should the job as executive director of the NCAA ever become vacant, and the sooner the better, I vote for Joe Tiller. This is Fran Fisher for Upon Further Review.
Joe Tiller brought that offense into the Big Ten, and a longtime Big Ten writer said, will this work in November? He says, I did it at Wyoming. That's not exactly the banana belt. Offense next. All right, welcome back to Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Great to have you with us. Let's talk about the offense. Again, the ability to move the ball, but Bill O'Brien will talk about the inability to finish.
Yeah, I really liked what happened with the rushing game, and it started immediately after Bill Belton's fumble. But Zach Zwinak came in and really established a powerful running game. He got loose for a nice big gain as well. So it was nice to see, and that's happened 2 games in a row. The running game's really starting to kick in. Belton had over 200 yards and 36 touches the game before, and then Zwinak, of course, with the big game, 150 yards on the ground.
Todd bogged down a bit in the, and they settled for a field goal with Fick, and then, of course, the fumble.
Well, when you're moving the ball between the 20s, that's always good to see. It's when you get to the 20, what happens from there. You know, one of the things we discuss all the time is who are you going to go to other than Allen Robinson in that area. So I think there's got to be some comfort level for Christian Hackenberg. Once you get in the red zone, that field shrinks a little bit. You got to make the decisions a little bit quicker. Just got to be a little bit sharper.
All right, let's talk about third down. Let's take a quick look at Penn State on third down to this point. You can see 32%. But here's the other part. They're 43% on third and less than 4. Even that's not a great number. Some teams are 43% for the year. So that's an area where they know that they need to get improvement.
And they started out really slow in this category right from the very beginning. So you knew the numbers would tick up a little bit, but it's really still not something that they've gotten a grasp of, whether it be the play calling for Coach O'Brien. You know, when you're trying different things as a coach, too, you're still trying to figure out what's been working for us? What can we consistently go to? And so you see sometimes running calls that you wouldn't necessarily see because he's trying just about anything to make this department go, to make this conversion rate better.
This is something I've seen 100 times, you know, mostly in basketball, a little bit in football here, but mostly in basketball. When you're coaching or playing, when your margin of error is very thin, you know, you have to be far more precise in everything. And it's a hard way to play and it's a hard way to coach. That's where the turnover discussion comes in. Penn State's a -7 giveaway takeaway. And Todd, that's a part that hurts right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the teams are scoring points off those turnovers. You lose field position battles because of that. They're demoralizing plays. I mean, they're plays that you're building momentum for your team, and then all of a sudden, bam, it is on the other side, and it's costing you.
But when the margin of error is thin, it becomes even more demoralizing because now you feel like, oh, you let one slip by. Bill O'Brien knows it's a category down the stretch that has to change for Penn State.
Yeah, no, turnovers have been an issue this year. And, you know, last game we fumbled the first play of the game. We fumbled the last play of the game for offense. So that's not very good. And so, you know, we address it. We emphasize it. We find different ways to drill it. You know, again, there's a fine line between overcoaching it, too. I mean, it's, you know, it's just what we tell them. You know, when you're a ball carrier on our team, you're carrying the hopes and dreams of this football team. And that's what you try to relay to the guys. And the guys, you know, they don't mean to fumble. It's not like, you know, they're, you know, it's just something that happened, and we've got to try to correct it, and we've got to stop doing it.
So now we get to our drive of the game. The drive of the game is brought to you by our good friends at Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the mall, renovating that gorgeous showroom of theirs. Already, of course, Stocker Subaru on drivables. Don't forget about that as well. So the drive of the game, down 24-10, fourth quarter. An opportunity for Penn State to cut this lead in half. And Allen Robinson, look at the ability on the sideline. He's just a magician over there. He just understands the exact width of the field. Then, of course, they get the big burst, the run here. Bill Belton into the secondary. Christian Hackenberg sets this baby up and just fires it over the middle. And now Penn State's in great shape. Pass interference call at Eric Murray in the end zone. Belton left side doesn't get in, and then here's the moment right here. You're on the doorstep of cutting the lead in half and really having all the momentum in the exchange right there. And from that point, Minnesota took over and drove the ball out. That was our drive of the game presented by our good friends at Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the Nittany Mall. Our player of the game, Zach Zwinak, on offense with 150 yards rushing on 26 carries for the Nittany Lions. He really found a rhythm in the ground game. Here's that first quarter run that helped set up the touchdown run. We took it off the left side. Good block on the edge there. And Zwinak finds the end zone for his 9th rushing touchdown of the year. He just was in a rhythm. His second 100-yard rushing game of the season, the 8th of his career. And you can just see, oh, by the way, both hands around the ball all the way through, too. But you know what? Ever since he's put the gloves on, that part's been fine.
So much about confidence, isn't it, when you're running the ball and you know you can hold on to it.
All right, so very quickly, Allen Robinson in the record book is just getting the job done. Look at the numbers here for Allen Robinson. Absolutely fabulous numbers, now the single-season record, and that's your feature this week.
Yeah, 40%, about 40% of the completions are going to Allen Robinson. So what does that tell you? Well, he's a fantastic player. He's the reigning Big Ten wide receiver. It also tells you they're having trouble finding those other options. He certainly is a pleasure to watch. Enjoy it now because Allen Robinson's career at Penn State could be over after 3 more games. So what about the other guys?
I think there's been improvement. I really do. I think that Brandon has had some chances to make plays and probably wishes he made some plays, but he works extremely hard. He's a good route runner, and he came out to practice yesterday and made some plays.
Felder made some awesome plays against Michigan, even in clutch situations. Lately, he has a serious case of the drops and is no help to Hackenberg. Remember this pitch and catch? Redshirt freshman Eugene Lewis bursts onto the scene with a dazzling touchdown in the opener with Syracuse. Since then, he's been almost invisible. That could change against the Boilermakers.
Gino's a guy that will play more against Purdue, and I think he's a guy that we need to continue to try to get the ball to, and he's got to continue to be a better route runner and really work on that, and I know he'll do that.
The tight end corps shows signs of life. Kyle Carter snags the game winner versus Illinois. Jesse James is a massive target, and the coach is keenly aware of the possibilities.
I really enjoy coaching Jesse. I see tremendous potential with Jesse.
Fellow tight end Adam Brenneman continues to work himself into the rotation. Hackenberg to Brenneman. Could be a nice combo for years to come. It's a steep drop-off from Robinson's 73 receptions to the next highest, Felder with 27. It's also a steep learning curve for a very young stable of wideouts.
It's not the easiest thing in the world to come in here and just play receiver right away in any offense, not just the offense that we run. And they've improved every week.
It's certainly open for discussion if Allen Robinson moves on to the NFL, who's going to step up and fill that void. But, look, Christian Hackenberg's a young quarterback. He's finding out his rhythm with his receivers. And I really do feel that opponents need to get Penn State now because I think this is a dipping point. I think it's only going to go up as Hackenberg gets more experience and as he gets more comfortable with all of his receivers.
And this was the game last year where Brandon Felder went out and had his 100-yard receiving game, played very well. Purdue, and we'll get to this later, has not just a good corner, but a great corner in Ricardo Allen, but they don't quite have Josh Johnson on the other side anymore, too. So that door's open. All right, let's get to tail of the tape. We love tail of the tape, all right? We're tail of the tape, people, one of our favorite parts here. All right, so this is what Penn State does offensively. That's what Purdue gives up. Todd,
Yeah, I always like to identify that number that sticks out, right? And I would say yards rushing allowed by Purdue,
Yes.
223 yards. Now,
Yeah.
early in the season, numbers can kind of be deceiving, right? They can kind of, well, we've only played a couple of games. We're now 9-10 games into the season. They're averaging over 223 yards allowed rushing. And oh, by the way, we've just talked about it, the Lions rushing game is in sync. So I look for them to really pound the rock.
Yeah, leading rusher the last 2 weeks, 201 and 150 respectively from two different guys. Now, of course, we talked about Allen Robinson. There's only one guy on the planet, by the way, that dresses better than Todd. That's Darrell Hazel, the head coach at Purdue, and he knows Robinson's a major threat on every offensive play.
Yeah, he's a good player, and they try to get the ball to him. You know, and they got a young quarterback, so they got to be careful on how they get the ball to him. But he's a good player. You watch him drop his hips and come out of breaks, and you can tell he's done it for a while. He catches the ball well in traffic. So we're going to have to do a good job of disrupting routes and getting guys in the quarterback's face so he doesn't have such easy lanes to throw it to.
He's a good player? The wrong G word. I think he's a great player. At least I think so. Coming up, we'll take a look at the Penn State defense. We talked about the tail of the tape. It was a tale of two halves because the Penn State defense pitched a shutout in the second half. We'll talk about that defense when we continue on Blue White Tailgate. Welcome back. Well, last week's game with Minnesota. First half, 4 possessions by Minnesota, a field goal, 3 touchdowns. Second half, amazing as to how Penn State shut them out. We'll talk about that in a moment. Our player of the week on defense is senior Malcolm Willis, who came up with a series of plays during the course of the game that put Penn State with an opportunity to win it. Look at this play over the middle. It almost gets the pick right there. Right? He did a heck of a job of playing the run all day long, right? And then, of course, downing this punt inside the 5-yard line. Alex Butterworth, by the way, had another really good game, second straight game. And then here's the fumble that C.J. Alani enforces. Malcolm Willis picks up the recovery, and Penn State could not cash in on that. That was the other part. Didn't cash in. Now, that was great field position. The one time all day Penn State had the ball on the plus side of the field.
Yeah, versatility for Malcolm Willis. What a nice effort by the senior, becoming a real leader all over the field. As you mentioned, the run support. Minnesota's not an easy team to read either. They got all that motion going on, so you really have to go with your keys and make a quick decision, and Malcolm Willis really had a nice ball game.
Well, I mentioned at the top this was a tale of two halves, and so we go to tale of two halves. Here are the numbers from first half to second half. You can see they dramatically cut down the yardage. They did a great job of cutting down the passing yards, and they didn't give up any points in the second half. There's no doubt that they had great adjustments.
That's the same game?
Same
Those
game.
numbers are the same game?
Same game.
How about that first half, too? And it was, you know, those 3 touchdown drives that Minnesota had in a row. They weren't short ones. No. They had 3 touchdown drives, 39 plays, 240 yards, 17 minutes, and 58 seconds. I mean, that is just unbelievable to have your defense out there. They couldn't get them off the field. Third down conversions, fourth down conversions. Now, they're the last team in the nation to allow a fourth down conversion, but they allowed 3 of them,
right.
3 for 3 in the ball game, and that really hurt.
Bill O'Brien feels the second half effort by the defense is something they can build upon.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of positives, Neil, in the second half. I think we stopped the run well. I think that we challenged receivers more. You know, I think we need to just, you know, we need to challenge some receivers a little bit more. You know what I mean? And I think that I think we play good run defense. I really do. I know some teams have run the ball on us in different schemes, but I think the core of our defense plays good run defense. You know, so I think I think that it will carry over, and I hope it does.
I think there are moments, Todd, where I think, you know, loosen up a little bit and go for it a couple of times. I mean, it's great to keep guys in front of you because that's the idea, but see it, believe it, read it, and go get it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's kind of a, you know, we mentioned we're 9 games into the season. The troubling thing is you're seeing stuff that you saw the first couple of games as well, miscommunications, that type of stuff, the explosive plays. And really, you know, look, we're going to talk about how good the second half was in just a second, but probably the most, and I use the word demoralizing, one of the more demoralizing plays I've seen in a long, long time was that touchdown to Max Williams at the end of the first half. with 17 seconds left to let him get behind you and not understand the coverages there. That stuff just cannot happen this deep into a season, whether you're a young ball club or you're not.
All right, we love tail of the tape. So for the second time in the show, brace yourselves. Tail of the tape, take two. Let's take a look at it. It's what the Penn State defense does. That's what the Purdue offense does. Look at the yards rushing, Todd.
Yeah, 68 in a game. That's not good. That right side, those right side numbers, well, the left side numbers should improve after this week's game when they can't run the ball like that. And we mentioned, the run defense has really stepped up, been a little bit more stout, especially in that second half.
We now know that Ben Klein, he played hurt on Saturday. He's out for the year. That taxes the linebacking depth even more so, puts a little bit more on Naeem Wortman, more on Mike Hall, more on Glenn Carson as well. And, of course, then there are the twos. Now let's get to whether Purdue can threaten them. Look, Danny Ettling's a really good freshman quarterback. Please, don't look at Purdue and say, oh, what about the quarterback? Jordan Lucas says because of that kid, they know they have to be ready.
We don't overlook anybody because any team could be beaten. They're a good Purdue team. They're very athletic and they're fast. They do a lot of different things on offense, and, we just want to piggyback off of the second half of the Minnesota game and just grow from there. And we don't want to take a step back from there. We want to keep on going. So
we're about to see two freshman quarterbacks that I think carry the banner for the Big Ten moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to see how the secondary reacts because they've been sliced up some this year, Steve, and, they really need a good performance.
Later in the show, Todd will talk with Chris Wenke about quarterback play. Coming up next, we'll take a look at recruiting as we continue with the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Rich Coast Coffee right after this.
It is time to talk recruiting here on the Blue White Tailgate, sponsored by Central Pennsylvania Dock and Door. And to do that, we bring in Andrew Callista. And you know what? We've had Zach Zwinak, we got Bill Belton, Akeel Lynch. So we got some running backs, the three-headed monster, all of them to return next year. Year after that, though, they're targeting that position in recruiting, aren't they, for the class of 2015?
Yeah, they definitely want to bring in some running backs because next year you lose Belton, you lose Zwinak, and when you only have 3 running backs, you're 2 running backs too short. You want to have a good stable of running backs, 5 guys. 1 goes down, you still got 4 right there.
Now we got a good list of candidates to talk about. We'll go name by name. We'll start with Josh Adams.
Yeah, Josh Adams. He's my favorite guy that they're going to target for 2015. He's 6 foot. He's over 200 pounds. He has 32 touchdowns as a sophomore, over 2,000 yards playing for Central Buck South down there. One problem, though, did tear his ACL earlier this year, but he did have over 700 yards and 10 touchdowns in those 3 games, Todd.
Saquon Barkley, another name that's doing some good things, and his numbers are good not only on the field but off the field as well.
Yeah, he's a smart kid. He goes to Whitehall in the Lehigh Valley. He was first team all Lehigh Valley. Right now he's committed to Rutgers. He had 1,800 yards as a sophomore. He's having a good senior season. That's another homegrown guy that could play multiple positions. Once you get him in here, you want to keep those homegrown guys here.
So hopefully a win over Rutgers, maybe he changes that commitment that he's got there to the Scarlet Knights. Bryce Love, how about him?
Bryce Love is the #1 rated scat back. I don't know how you rate scat backs, running backs. I mean, they have him rated as a scat back, but he's an all-purpose guy. Kind of in the Darren Sproles more. He could do it all, catch the ball out of the backfield. Penn State had a guy a couple years ago like that, Devin Smith. But, this guy's not tripping over blades of grass like Devin Smith used to when he would get the ball in open space. This is a quality guy. Every school is after him. Arkansas, Clemson, Florida State. You get that guy out of North Carolina, he could do some big things for Penn State in the future.
And here's a pipeline the Nittany Lions would like to reopen. Bishop McDevitt, Andre Robinson out of the Harrisburg area.
Yeah, Penn State, they seem to always have a little bit of disappointment coming out of McDevitt. They didn't get LaShawn McCoy, went to Pitt. Noah Spence looked like he was going to be a Penn State kid until the sanctions came out. He ends up at Ohio State. But Andre Robinson, he's a solid kid. He had 2 guys in front of him playing out of the running back position, but he did have 18 touchdowns as a sophomore, over 1,000 yards, and this year he's having another big year down there for McDevitt.
Okay, so a good crop of running backs to look forward to. Thomas Holly, you have something you want to say about him?
Yeah, Thomas Holly. It seems it was a Penn State-Ohio State battle, but if you get on the internet and search around a little bit, you'll find out that, Ohio State has kind of cooled on him. That's what the Ohio State folks are saying. Really, I think Urban Meyer gave him an ultimatum, either you're in or you're out, because you just don't make a visit to a kid, accidentally bump into him in the school, and then all of a sudden you've cooled on him. But it looks kind of like that's going to be a Penn State-Florida battle now for Thomas Hawley, and that would be a big get for this class on the D-line.
Absolutely. A lot of stars next to his name for sure. And we do want to talk about an injury update and Dallastown linebacker from York County, Ben Klein. Boy, what a tough guy he is. He's out for the year. Now, he was playing with a shoulder injury that was going to require surgery at the end of the year. Tears the pectoral muscle in his chest, so he gets surgery this week. He's out for the season. That's a blow to their depth at linebacker for sure.
Yeah, and what a tough kid. I think Coach O'Brien said it happened on the second or third play of the game, and he didn't say anything. And he ended up with a stick in the fourth quarter that actually, got Penn State the ball back before they fumbled on that drive down at the goal line. I mean, what a tough kid just to play. That's a painful injury, just to play an entire football game with a torn pec.
Yeah, still had 4 tackles in the game after tearing that pectoral muscle. That was our Health South injury update. And Coach O'Brien talked about some of the guys that are no longer on the field.
Oh, I think that injuries are a part of the game, and I think every team out there has to deal with injuries, and that's just the way it goes, especially this time of the year. And give the players a lot of credit for stepping in and trying to fulfill their role. Whether it's Stephen Obang or maybe this week even Brandon Bell, who's going to maybe get some playing time this week if he practices well.
To be expected after 9 weeks, just 3 games left to go, so some names we haven't seen maybe getting some playing time. Here's a name that you might notice, Chris Wanke, 2000 Heisman Trophy winner. We have an interview with him coming up as we talk about one of the recruits coming to Penn State. That interview is coming up next on the Blue White Tailgate.
All right, it's a long road for Purdue football as we come back. And, if they're 1-8, that one win is over an FCS team and not over an FBS team. It's a long road.
Yeah, and I would say their most impressive performance was in a loss, maybe against Notre Dame back in September. They lost 31-24, but you look at that result now and you start scratching your head. How'd they stay in the game with Notre Dame at that particular point? But that's a big rival, so they were probably pretty geared up for that. But, it's a team that's 1-8. They have a first-year head coach implementing his system and a true freshman quarterback. Why not let the guy play, right? He's got talent. You got to let and see what you have and start building immediately.
Darrell Hazel did a heck of a job at Kent State, by the way, so let's take a look at his file because he brought them to the brink of the BCS last year as the head coach. If they had not lost to Northern Illinois, they would have been the BCS team. So he knows how to build, but he also has inherited something I'm not even sure he realized what he was getting.
Yeah, he's assistant coach with Ohio State, so he knows the Big Ten very well, but Purdue is a real undertaking, and it's not going to be easy for them to get back into it. Now, starting next year, I think they move to a little easier division. The schedule's not going to be nearly as tough as over in the East, but it's still not going to be easy to compete for a few years.
Well, he has a building block. I think he's identified his franchise quarterback, which is important, but he also likes the matchup against Penn State.
They've kind of changed their style here in the last couple weeks offensively. They've gotten into more 2 tight end sets and a little bit more 2-back sets and are trying to run zone very much like Iowa is doing, or it did last week. Defensively, they're playing a lot of zone coverage back there, not a whole lot of man coverage. But again, it's another team I feel going into this one, just studying them, that we match up very well.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
And this is one of those games, I think, where the longer it goes, if they hang in there, that's going to be important for Purdue.
Well, and obviously the coach has got to implement some confidence in his players. But, you look at the hardcore results. They've been outscored since they've hit the Big Ten. They're 0-5, 193-31. So, that's not what you're going to tell your team. Hey, we've been outscored 193-31. But, yeah, I mean, there's some dangerous players on the team, not just the freshman quarterback. Akeem Hunt is kind of their all-everything guy that you kind of have to account for on every play.
2 kickoff returns for touchdowns in his career, including 1 this season. But let's take a look at the numbers for Purdue offensively so far. It's just a tough road. It's the rushing yards. This is not a team that really can grind out a 10 to 15 play drive against you, and he points that out himself.
Yeah, and the woes start start when you cannot run the ball because it changes everything else that you have to do. The defense can just pin their ears back and come at a young quarterback who hasn't seen a lot of the stuff that he's seen. When you get yourself in those 2nd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, it just snowballs. It's a snowball effect for a young team or for a team that's just not having any success at all.
They use Akeem Hunt out of the backfield effectively as a receiver. There's also the part of Justin Sims, the tight end. But D'Angelo Yancey has developed a nice symmetry, really with Etling.
Yeah, he's got that kind of inconsistency that almost scares you, right? Doesn't have great statistics, but 2 of the games he's been over 100 yards receiving, and he averages 20 yards a catch, just under 19.9. So you definitely have to know where he's at on each play, and you got to pay attention to what's going on for him.
In the month of October, Purdue didn't run a single play in the red zone. Okay,
come on.
I'm not. That's not a joke. I'm not
it's
kidding.
funny.
From September 28th till November 9th, they did not run a single play in the red zone. I mean, that's how tough it's been for them to this point. Defensively, they've tried to hang in there, but that defense has to go. As you can see, what they've done defensively, that's what they've given up. Part of that's field position, but again, it's the rushing yards that Todd pointed out earlier. That's a real tough spot. And this defense, as Darrell Hazel will tell you, will get a big challenge from Christian Hackenberg through the air.
I think he stands in there pretty well for a young guy. I think they're doing a lot of half-field reads with him so he doesn't have to scan across the field. So I think they've kind of protected him a little bit that way as a coaching staff, which they have to do with a young guy like that. But, you're going to continue to see him get better and better each week.
Well, it's the same thing he has to do with his quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And Etlinger, he hasn't played every single game, so his numbers are a little down as far as overall touchdown and interceptions, but he's got 4 TDs, 5 interceptions. So he's going to make young mistakes. Mistakes, that's what you expect from a young quarterback, but they're going to take some chances.
Gaston and Russell, very good off the edge. Will Lucas, good solid linebacker for them as well. Then there's Ricardo Allen.
Tell us about this guy. I know you like him a lot.
Ricardo Allen. In fact, I voted for him Big Ten Freshman of the Year back 3 years ago, because you could see it. He has 3 interceptions this year. He has 10 in his career. He's taken 4 picks back for touchdowns. And on a team that is really struggling, you have to give this guy his just due. He is just a really good football player.
Yeah, and those are impact plays. When you are down and you need something to make a difference, he is that playmaker on defense that can step in, as you mentioned, Steve, not only just get the turnover, but he can take it to the house, and those are game changers.
No question. Then there's the other guy. You don't want to say, hey, look, we have the best punter in the league, but you need that spot. Cody Webster, Harrisburg's own, has been somebody that has been a model of consistency, and this guy is going to get plenty of votes for first team All-Big Ten.
Yeah, and he gets a lot of work, doesn't he? I mean, with Purdue's offense, they're punting the ball all the time. But, hey, look, you look for your weapons where you can get them. And if Purdue is struggling on offense, at the very least, let's get some good field position. So it's nice to see Cody having a lot of success coming out of Harrisburg.
2 outstanding young quarterbacks in this game. Penn State's recruiting other outstanding quarterbacks. So we decided we're going to go to the guru who works with young quarterbacks, especially on the footwork part of it. Chris Wenke, the 2000 Heisman Trophy winner. He joins Todd next to talk about quarterback play right after this.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate. It is our honor to welcome a member of a very exclusive club, and he resides at the Heisman House forever. The 2000 winner of the Heisman Trophy, Chris Wenke from Florida State. Chris, thanks a lot for joining us on the program. And of course, I told you before, we don't want to talk about the weather, but we do want to talk about a big quarterback you were coaching this past year, Michael O'Connor, who fans here in Nittany Nation are going to get real familiar with.
Yeah, just a special kid, really a pro-style 6'5", 225-pound quarterback, similar to what the Nittany Lion fans are used to looking at right now in Christian Hackenberg. So this was a first-year program for us, and Michael was our quarterback and did an outstanding job leading this football team. Couldn't be more impressed with his progress throughout the course of the year, and very excited about his future at Penn State.
How familiar are you with Christian Hackenberg? Did you work with him before? What do you like when you see and you watch what he's done so far this year?
Yeah, he's very impressive. He's a special kid, and I think you know, I had the opportunity to work with him at the Under Armour High School All-American game where I've worked the last few years with the quarterbacks and actually an offensive coordinator last year. So, you know, I got my taste of Christian Hackenberg, and walking away from that experience, I felt like he was one of the premier guys I've ever worked with. Felt like he had all of the tools and the mindset and the mental makeup to be a big-time quarterback, and that has come to fruition. You know, as I watch him throughout the course of this year, I think sometimes we forget that he's just a young guy, and I think the future is very bright for Christian, and he's already accomplishing great things.
So for you, I know you have a big running back that's going to Alabama. It's a shame we couldn't get the package deal with Bo coming our way too. But with Michael O'Connor in the recruiting process, it's always interesting with quarterbacks to see when you have someone in place at a school that's very young, why would you encourage a quarterback to go to the school as well? That has to have something to do with Coach O'Brien, I would assume.
Yeah, there's no question, and I think Michael was trying to find the right fit for his skill set, and I think the ability to be able to go to a place like Penn State and have the opportunity to work with Coach O'Brien and Charlie Fisher and be able to be in that situation. I think most young high school kids don't evaluate this whole recruiting process as extensively as Michael did, and he's a very smart young man, and he realized that the best place for him to continue to develop under great coaches, even though Christian was there, Michael made that decision. I think it's a great decision.
So what is it about Coach O'Brien specifically that you like that attracted Michael? And talk about maybe some of the footwork, some of the things that you would like to see out of your quarterbacks and maybe how that plays into his decision to go with the Nittany Lions.
Well, I think I always leave it up to the kid to evaluate each and every situation in terms of who's recruiting him. But he felt very comfortable with Coach O'Brien from the beginning. And when he asked me about him, you know, I felt like one, he was doing an outstanding job in a tough situation in Penn State with the adversity that they were dealing with, and I felt like he would continue to grow that program, and they're going in the right direction. And if you're a quarterback, and the pedigree of obviously Coach O'Brien working in the NFL with some of the best, it was just a good fit. And I think when it comes down to really the mechanics, I'm an old school guy, and you know, I think passing the football is rhythm and timing. It's incorporating your feet into, obviously, what you're trying to get accomplished. And I think you must play the game with a sense of urgency. You must be able to process information and deliver the ball with anticipation. And I think the good ones can do that. You look at Christian and you look at Michael just being a younger version of Christian, that they have all those skill sets to be able to accomplish those things and be big-time quarterbacks.
Chris, you had a unique arc in your college football career and getting there and your path to get there. Older quarterback in college, but we are seeing just a wave of young quarterbacks have success early on. Can you talk about, even in your alma mater with Jameis Winston and some of these young quarterbacks, Johnny Manziel winning the Heisman as a freshman, what are your thoughts on all these young guys having success so early in their college careers?
Yeah, well, I say that the game continues to change and the players continue to change, and we're starting to evaluate and be able to develop guys at a younger age. And I think as the game at the collegiate level continues to kind of sway towards the athletic type quarterback, there's still room in that space for a pro style quarterback. But I think what's happening now is they're allowing those good young athletes to get the ball in their hands and make plays. And I think you know, it doesn't happen very often. Historically, it has not happened that young quarterbacks have success, but I think there have been a few cases here more recently where these young guys have taken it upon themselves to ensure that they're preparing the right way and they're having success, and they're also in good programs surrounded by great players and great coaches. So I think we'll see where this trend goes.
And finally, just as the sanctions were loosened with Penn State, obviously quarterbacks have to have weapons around them. Is that something that Michael is excited about, to know that, look, they're going to be able to bring in a lot more talent to the program coming up here right immediately?
Yeah, there's no question. And I think these young players analyze all those different things as they make their decisions. But I think especially at the quarterback position, that's another reason why you select the place that you go, is you want to ensure that you're going to be surrounded by good players. And I think, you know, the one thing Michael has full confidence in is starting with Coach Bryan and that coaching staff, but knowing and understanding they're going to bring the right types of players in there, surround them with good players to have an opportunity to have success.
Okay. Chris Weinke, the 2000 Heisman Trophy winner, thank you so much for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate, and best of luck to you in the future.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And
Yep.
we're going to be right back on the Blue White Tailgate. We're going to talk about those top 25 matchups, the BCS standings coming out.
All right, this is what we affectionately call the G block. We love the G block. We're in the home stretch right now. And so is the college football season. We make the turn. Let's take a look at the standings in the Big Ten as we work toward it. Ohio State driver's seat. They've already beaten Wisconsin, game in hand, good shape. So now we go over to the Legends division. Michigan State continues to play great football. They still have a matchup with Nebraska. That's this weekend. That's the one that swings it one way or the other. I think a lot of people would like to see the Michigan State defense and the Ohio State offense on the same field because in this particular season, they don't play each other regularly.
Yeah, you better believe the Buckeyes are rooting for the Spartans. They need Michigan State to climb the ladder as far as they can before they meet them in the Big Ten championship game for national title implications.
And Michigan State with Langford at tailback, they're starting to play some pretty good offense too. It's an interesting dynamic. We'll see how it plays out. All right, so that's the race to Indy. Now let's see about the race to the Rose Bowl. That is the BCS top 25. Yep, Ohio State. Now, Ohio State is 3 in each of the human polls, Harris and coaches poll. They're 4 in the computer right now. So keep that in mind. Stanford 1 loss there. Baylor undefeated at 5. Oregon's out of the picture.
Yeah, Baylor's interesting at 5 because they're in the same position as Ohio State. They need their teams that they've beaten to keep winning. They need, they need some computer rankings to keep boosting them up. If they stay unbeaten and take it all the way through that conference, it's going to be interesting.
It's interesting because, Todd, their schedule's backloaded. Their better teams are on the end. Oklahoma State, Texas, teams like that. So that's what makes it interesting. So let's check out the games coming up this weekend. All right. First of all, around the BCS, should be a good one down in the Plains. Auburn and Georgia squaring off. Oklahoma State at Texas. All right, so there's a weeding out process. Oregon trying to bounce back at home against a Utah team that's actually had a very good season.
Oregon really wants to get at Utah, too, after that loss to Stanford. But how about Mac Brown and Texas, the Longhorns? Everybody talking about who's going to replace Mac Brown. Mac Brown's going, nobody. I'm staying put. They're on a winning streak.
Let's take a look at the Big Ten. Here's the big weekend coming up. Ohio State's back in action at Illinois, should be okay there. Michigan, Northwestern. But the big one is Michigan State, Nebraska. That's where the Legends division is going to be determined, right there in Lincoln.
Maybe Bo Pelini's future, too. We'll see. That could be a big one for the Cornhuskers, and if he wants to continue to stay in Lincoln.
Tommy Armstrong is going to get the start. A lot of people think Taylor Martinez, his season might be through, which is a shame. A fine quarterback, had a good career at Nebraska. All right, time now for the keys to the game. And here's the problem you have, Todd, is that I get to go first. So whatever I say, I steal all the good ones. Look, the bottom line is take care of business in a game like this, okay? Go out, completely focused, set to go, get a good running game going, good mix on offense. Don't turn the ball over. Don't let Purdue hang around. Don't give Purdue any feeling during the game that they're in the game.
I think I'm going to go on the defensive side. I usually talk about the offense. I'll let Steve handle that. You're right. Offensively, they just need to take care of business. Defensively, let's continue that momentum. Put Purdue in those bad situations. Get off the field. They could not get those third down conversions and fourth down conversions. Get off the field on defense and give it back to the O.
All right, so all set. Penn State and Purdue with the noon kickoff at Beaver Stadium. Our thanks to Aaron's for once again the outstanding furniture that we are living in all season long and enjoying. Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Thanks for joining us.